Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. In this episode, I sat down with a good mate of mine, Ben Dainton. Ben is a fantastic leader, and in my opinion is super wise before his time. In this chat we talked about leadership, tattoos, the Enneagram, goal setting, and so much more. We had so many laughs along the way, and I really hope you enjoy this super wide-ranging conversation with Mr. Ben Dainton. Ben Dainton, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks for coming on, man. So glad that you are here.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be here and an honour to be invited onto the show. So thanks for having me.
Third guest.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that.
That'll go down in history.
Wasn't it always third time's the charm? Yeah. So
bring the charm.
Exactly.
I'm expecting incredible things now.
Oh, yeah. I thought I was just bringing my good looks, but you're right, it's a podcast. So
exactly.
Useless here.
No filming equipment just yet.
Yeah.
That's not in the budget.
Yeah, it costs a little bit more.
So for people that don't know you, when you have to introduce yourself to a stranger, how do you usually do it?
Well, normally what I do is I firstly tell them that I'm a pastor, and then the next thing that normally gets asked is, but you have like tattoos and piercings, so you don't look like a pastor. Like literally I was just at Apple and I said, oh, I'm a pastor. He said, oh, I thought you were going to say like a carpenter. And again, just because I got piercings and tattoos.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, close.
Yeah.
This
Similar.
time I'm more a representative for Jesus at the moment. Yeah,
that's true. There you go.
And you wouldn't want me building anything for you. I'm terrible at that.
No.
But yeah, normally I just tell them I'm a pastor, married to Rachel, who's amazing. And yeah, I love AFL, which is a big deal up here in Queensland.
Huge deal.
Yeah. So people kind of like
we have
often write me off.
Most incredible team there is at the moment.
The Brisbane Lions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got a soft spot for him now because my team that I go for is Hawthorn. And our old captain, Luke Hodge, now plays for the Lions.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I kind of go, all right, like the Lions are all right in my book just because I get to see Hodgie. So,
yeah. I was this was years ago. It must have been, you probably know more than I do, but it was the year, there's quite a few years there when they were just slaying. They were
2001, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember we watched every game because my dad was born in Victoria. He was a big AFL fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was born in Box Hill, I think, in Melbourne. Probably got that wrong, but I've heard that he's mentioned Box Hill.
Yeah,
so
well, it's a good suburb.
Place. Yeah. We watched every game, and then it kind of showed how much of a fan he was because as soon as the Brisbane Lions stopped winning, we just switched over to rugby league.
Yeah. Well, I think they've been through some pretty rough years.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like they were close to winning.
Yeah, because that was when Lee Matthews, I think, was their coach.
Yeah.
And
see, Lee Matthews was a Hawthorn guy. He played for Hawthorn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, soft spot for the Lions.
There you go. Because I didn't actually realize that this shows my knowledge. I didn't realize that he was a player.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
he's considered the GOAT. He's considered greatest of all time, Lee Matthews.
Is that what GOAT means?
Yeah.
Is that what they call Nathan Lyon the GOAT?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Really?
That's exactly
I
right.
legitimately always wondered, what the heck? Why are they calling him the GOAT?
Well, look, I'm already being helpful, man. Already teaching you stuff. Yeah.
The wisdom of the carpenter.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, GOAT, greatest of all time.
There you go. I wasn't going to ask this until later, but as soon as you mentioned tattoos and piercings, where did you get your tattoos done?
All over the place. I've actually never been to the same tattoo artist twice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why is that? Is that because you're not stoked on the ones you have?
Yeah. Every single time I'm like, this guy also sucks. No.
Yeah.
Just some of them have been like while I've been on holidays. So I found like a really good place nearby. I was like, oh, sweet. They can do it for me. They had time, made it happen. And the other one is just some of them are slightly different styles to other ones. So my philosophy is try and go to a tattoo artist who like focuses on those areas.
Yeah.
So I find someone in the area that seems to be the best of the bunch around that and try and go to them and get them to do it.
And how long do you usually spend thinking about what you want to get before you get one?
It's interesting. I spend less time thinking about it now that I'm older than I did when I was younger, which is weird because I thought I'd spend more time.
Do you reckon that's also because you've already got some, so you might as well get some more?
I think probably
Yeah.
a little bit. I think also probably when I was younger, it was a little bit more just nervousness about the whole experience. Whereas
Yeah.
now it's like I kind of know, and I'm pretty comfortable that if I've been sitting on an idea for a few months, that
Yeah.
actually that's long enough. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sold on it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with getting this.
Okay, because the only reason I ask is I've been thinking about getting one for quite a long time now, and I've just been talking to different people
Yeah.
about it, because you can do so much research online.
Oh,
and there's
totally.
So many different schools of thoughts, and at the end of the day, like if you get something that you like, yeah, who cares? You know,
Yeah.
like I figured by the time we're like 60, they'll have incredible technology if I don't like it anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's true. You can get it lasered off. And I think by the time you get to 60, there's a little bit of like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine.
Yeah.
I already don't really care what other people think about it.
Yeah.
I can just imagine when I get to 60, it's going to be even less cares given.
Yeah, exactly. It'll all be like all stretchy and
Yeah.
nice.
But then that's value for money, you know? Like,
exactly.
got more surface area out of it.
You've gone from an A5 to an A4.
Exactly.
I don't know if you
For
get
free.
You'd have to be pretty big to be an A.
You would.
Eat a lot of Maccas.
That would be, yeah, a lot of Maccas.
I watched. People will have no idea what we were talking about, but you know how we were talking about Ollie Sykes from Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah,
I looked at his tattoo that you were talking about. It looks flipping awesome. Eh?
it does.
It's pretty. I don't know how that'll look when he's 60.
No,
but,
that one won't age well, I don't think.
But yeah, I showed Danielle that, and she's like, she was horrified.
Yeah.
She's it's so funny.
I mean, it looks good now, but in the middle process,
Yeah.
when his arm was just completely black,
Oh yeah, it
was not.
It looked like
hideous.
It looked like when I was a kid and I used to steal the teachers' like stamp pads
Oh, yeah.
and put it all over.
And
you.
just stamp yourself up.
Yeah, that's what it kind of looked like.
Yeah.
But he probably paid a lot of money for that to
Yeah, a
happen.
lot. Oh, when you're famous like that, though, you probably got tattoo artists saying, "Can I tattoo you?"
Yeah.
Because they want to get their rep out. So you might have got some for free.
Yeah, true. But that would take, because for people that don't understand, just Google Ollie Sykes arm tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like full. How would you call it?
They call it a blacked out sleeve.
How do they do that?
I don't know, but it must take so much time because it's just the whole arm is tattooed black ink.
Yeah.
And then they just tattoo over the top of it in like white ink. So
They
I
must
don't know.
have like multiple needles or something going on.
I don't know
You
how.
have to imagine. So
Yeah. But the craziest part is he used to have a whole arm of tattoos underneath that.
yeah,
And then he got it blacked over the top of that. And then he's got more over the top. So that one arm has copped an absolute flogging.
it's probably like an inch thicker.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
right. Just from the build up of ink.
Yeah, he probably has like a bigger bicep because he has to lift his arm up the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to get ripped, I guess.
Yeah.
Just it's like constant weights. Anyway, now we're talking crap.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned that you moved up from where'd you live? Ballarat.
Ballarat. Nailed it.
Well, why'd you move up from Ballarat?
So I moved up from Ballarat to Brisbane for a job at Gateway Baptist Church as the youth pastor there
Yep.
at the Mackenzie campus. So solely moved up for work. And I mean, I got family up here. The weather is way better.
Pretty
than
cool
Ballarat.
people up here. I
Oh,
guess.
there's some really great people.
Yeah.
Not that I knew that at the time, you know what I mean? It was kind of like a hedged bet. It was
Yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure there'll be some good quality people here.
They're hard to find, but
Yeah, but I found a few, so
yeah,
that's always good.
Yeah, that's always a plus then.
Yeah.
And is that kind of something? Just thinking about being a youth pastor, things like that. Is that something that you've always wanted to do? If you know what I mean, so if when you're in high school, how were you like?
I was sitting in careers class and they're like, so what do you want to do for the rest of your life? No, pastor was not my number one preference.
Okay.
What
was?
Well, I always wanted to be a sports star. Like
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I always wanted to play cricket for Australia or play footy for Hawthorn, like AFL, sorry,
Yeah.
not rugby league.
Yeah, I don't.
I would have got destroyed.
Football for me is
Soccer? Oh,
so-
okay, yeah.
Well,
Gotcha.
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, you are. That's all right, though. You're still a good quality guy.
Yeah.
But it was something like that. Doing those sort of things was the dream. Realised quite quickly that I wasn't going to be tall enough. So thanks, mum and dad,
Yeah.
for the poor genetics on that front. But thought, you know what would be the second best thing if I can't be a sports star would be hanging out with sports stars.
That's true.
So I wanted to be a sports physio.
Yeah.
And, a little bit to hang out with sports stars, but also I loved the idea of like just being one of those expert guys that sees someone break their leg and be like, yeah, they'll be out for like 6 weeks.
You get to run out on the field with like a bum bag.
Yeah. Be like, oh no, my star player's injured. But also at the same time, yes, this is where I get to shine.
Yeah.
That was kind of the dream. But then I was nowhere near smart enough in year 12 or devoted enough to my studies or in a good enough emotional and mental state of mind during year 12.
Yeah.
It was not fruitful to get the ATAR score that I needed.
I imagine it's a hard, and plenty of people do it. I reckon it'd be a hard transition to go from high school to studying I think that's probably why you can't study medicine straight up and things like that. But when I was in high school, I didn't even finish high school, but that shows how committed I was. The thought of studying something.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just went to the skate park instead.
Preach.
That was the place, and so that kind of, you decided not to do that, and so then where to from there?
So after year 12 finished, I didn't get what I was looking for, obviously, because I didn't get the results that I needed, and so I was kind of just floating around. I got offered an internship at my church back in Ballarat.
Oh yeah.
At like 18, straight out of high school, come and do just a year, 1 day a week, learning and doing a little bit of study. But one of my best mates who lived in Seymour, which is basically this town that you drive past on your way to Sydney from Melbourne.
Okay.
Like that's what it's known for. I think it's got a cool train or something there, and I think there's an army barracks nearby.
All right.
That's kind of what it's known for. Yeah, there's like 5,000
Is that
people
why it's
live
called
there.
Seymour? Because they're like, you can come here, but you can see more.
Elsewhere, yeah.
Seymour elsewhere.
That's right.
Oh, man, that joke could have been so much better than I did not think about that one.
That's right. It was organic, man. It was natural. But yeah, so he lived there, and he found out about a gap year course at a Bible college
Okay.
in Melbourne called Year in the Sun. And
you get nice and tanned.
not in Melbourne. It was Sun, S-O-N, like, Jesus, the Son of God.
There used to be a festival called Sunfest.
Yeah, S-O-N?
Yeah, S-O-N.
Yeah,
and it used to rain all the time.
Yeah, the rich irony.
Yeah.
But so he sold it to me not so much as a Bible college course, but as in hey man, I'm doing this thing down in Melbourne. My parents have a house that we can live together in. Okay. And I was like, sick.
That's the dream.
Yeah, and my parents did this cool thing, which I definitely want to do when I have kids, is the year after high school, if us as kids took 12 months to invest in our faith, they would give us 1 year's worth of school fees. So the fees that they were paying for us in high school, they would continue for one more year. Wow. And so I got that used to pay my rent.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is a good deal.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Man.
So I had that and the offer of my best mate being down in Melbourne. And I was like, yeah, I'll do this course because I'll get the Centrelink. So like full-time study. And then my rent will be paid for and I'll live with my best mate. This will be sweet. Yeah. And, like I wasn't going down there to necessarily learn heaps about God. I was like, yeah, that'll be fun, learn a bit, but...
see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the year, the plan was that I'd go back to Ballarat and just see what I could do at uni after that, or maybe work until I figured out something else.
Yeah.
But it was just while I was there that like I had an experience with God that totally just rocked me, changed my whole life. Like one of those experiences where I walked into a room, a certain person in a certain mind, state of mind, emotionally, even just what I was carrying, and walked out a different person.
Wow. Like
3 hours later, to the point that people commented that I was there on, it was like a mid-year retreat. They said, what happened to you in there? You look different. Like there's something different about your eyes. Like just like weird stuff. Like walked out a completely different person.
What do they mean? Like what do they mean something different about your eyes?
Well, I think I'd probably been carrying a lot of pain and hurt, just from... year 12. So basically what had happened is I'd had like this girlfriend that I'd been with. She cheated on me a whole bunch of times. So I was devastated about that. Tried to get some validation through another girl. She didn't cheat on me, but just wasn't interested. That sort of died off. And so I just deep dived into the emo hardcore scene. So I did the whole, like, literally, I think that girl, the second girl sort of like broke things off with me. And I'm pretty sure like 3 weeks later, I dyed my hair black. I went and got a piercing. And I just listened to like the most emo, screamo, like music that I could. Just really, fully deep dived into it. Just went off the deep end a little bit. Like my humor got real dark. I was hanging out with guys that weren't necessarily the best influence. Not in like a terrible way. I was still going to church, doing all that, but
didn't necessarily align with your values or morals.
No, and I was just hurting. I didn't really know what I was standing for, but I just knew that I kind of wanted to have a bit of space from people. I didn't want to get too close emotionally or anything like that. So, I did the whole classic, like wear a lot of black, wear aggressive, like T-shirts. Like, I'm rocking bands like Impending Doom, like.
Sounds so happy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that looks like a happy, fun guy to go and talk to.
Exactly.
So just that sort of stuff. So I just deep dived into that, got a couple more piercings as the year went on. Like by the time I started Bible college, I had my like little tragus one, which is like the little bit on the side of your head, like little cartilage bit. Both my earlobes, I had a lip ring and a nose ring.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had all that.
Don't go through the airport.
No, I didn't travel very much.
I always wanted, I remember because how old are you? You're 20...
27. Yeah. I'm 28 in April.
Okay.
So whenever this comes out.
Yeah. Well, it'll probably come out pretty soon.
Yeah.
So
maybe still 27.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll bring it out on your birthday.
Yeah, there we go. 28.
Yeah. So you're a year younger than me, so we're probably around the same sort of time.
Yeah.
But I remember when I think I was still in high school. All I wanted was like a lip piercing.
Oh yeah, they were so cool.
There was and the one my mate had one, and it had like it was a ring, but then it had like the little ball thing on it.
That's what I had.
Oh, he was the sickest dude ever.
Oh, thanks. I'll take that. I'll take that my way.
Now I look back on it and go, that would be so annoying. Like,
it was.
Yeah.
The first day I got it done, you had to have a little stud in, and I went to like have dinner with my dad and his boss. So like my dad was working at Churches of Christ conference. I was meeting with the CEO of Churches of Christ, Victoria and Tasmania. I'm trying to eat a burger, and my lip ring got hooked on my tooth.
Oh my God.
And I fully like yelped, and then like had to get my finger in and like unhook it. I'm sure my dad was like, apologies for my son or something. Like it was
the youth of today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this guy would have been like 55, 60, and he was probably thinking the exact same thing.
What a great influence you are.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Would you say that was with those girlfriends and that time in your life? Would you say that's probably like one of the toughest times you've had in your life? Do you think? Or?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty shaping time for me. Like I look back now, and like some of my stuff has been that I've always had to work through is kind of like the world is out to get me. Like everyone's against me. People are going to like reject me. There's a whole lot of that sort of stuff that I carry. And I think it comes back from there, a couple of key sort of steps out into romantic to people love me and value me as a person. And to have those sort of things happen, like, get cheated on, have someone reject you pretty quickly, I think probably enforced some of that inner narrative I had about people being against me and people not being for me, and that battle about myself and other people loving and caring about me.
Yeah, it knocks you around, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
really,
totally. Particularly
really
those first couple of relationships can be quite formative especially if they go south traumatically like that. Yeah.
Well, and at that time of your life, I don't know about you, but at that time of my life, I was not thinking 10 years ahead. I wasn't thinking about this will be different when I'm in my late 20s or even mid-20s.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm 18, I'm an adult, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
You look back on it and you go, man, you had no responsibilities, like
No.
a little bit of responsibilities, but, I think, which is natural because your worldview's so small at that time in your life. You just build everything up and it's massive.
Yeah, because it's the first time you've dealt with heartache. So it's the worst heartache you've ever felt.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that level of experience.
Yeah, it's your worst, your first breakup is your worst breakup because you never had a breakup before.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I had plenty of breakups.
Yeah, I had a few too.
I was never the one breaking up though. I was always broken up with.
Yeah.
But as a high school, like, man, you have another girl the next day.
Yeah, exactly right.
So,
you just text their friend, don't you?
Yeah. The relationships, like, there was like a couple in my school, and they were like, the classic couple that were dating since they were 12 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But everybody else, it was like I don't know how there weren't more arguments and fights looking back on it. But you think, I was looking back on it on the other day, going, how did I get through the day just with the mentality, and how did I learn anything?
Yeah.
It's probably why I didn't finish school, to be honest. So
Maybe.
But it's such a crazy time of year, and as you said, a really like shaping time of year.
Totally.
Do you think that how you're saying, like, that kind of instilled in you a bit of other worlds against me, almost glass half empty kind of view? Has that carried on in your life?
Yeah, totally. And I probably wouldn't say it's like glass half empty, but it's more I'm constantly battling everything.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I probably didn't realize how deeply it ran until I've just been like, doing some work and trying to understand myself and why I operate the way that I operate. But it probably came to a head when, and this is going to sound so weird, it was my first ever preach at Gateway at a 6 p.m. service. So I'd been preaching at youth as part of my role.
Yeah.
But, this was the 6 p.m. service. This was speaking to my peers. This was on one of the main stages. So I felt like, oh man, I really want to bring it. And it was in October. I'd prepared this message. I'd practiced it like 6 times because I was so like nervous about it.
Yeah.
And then there was a massive storm and it cut the power to the church. So we couldn't have a service. And so
I think I was on bass that night.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every time I've been on guitar, it's the power's gone out.
Yeah.
Something about me and Tertia as well. Every time we've been on team together,
yeah,
power's gone
well,
out.
I think it's the same. Maybe it's the three of us. Maybe we're the Trinity that caused it to happen.
Too much power coming out of us.
Yeah, I've had 2 communion talks and a sermon that have been canned from the power going out. And it hasn't happened in a while. So maybe we just haven't been on team in a while at the same time. But yeah, so that happened. And I felt fine about it. I was like, all right, that's okay. I'll wait a little while. And it was probably 6 weeks later. I can't remember what it was, but I was just in a bad mood. I got up really early to just get ready for work. And I was just having one of those conversations with God in my head. I was really frustrated about stuff. And it was literally, I was getting out of the shower. Shower time's the best time to have those conversations because there's no one to interrupt you. And I'm just having this conversation. And I remember I had this thought come into my head and I was like, man, my sermon that I was going to speak in October must have been so bad that God made sure I couldn't preach it. I remember thinking that. Yeah. And then I just had for those who are listening and aren't Christians, I don't know how else to describe it, but you might just describe it as your inner conscience. But just had this other voice in my head, which I just took as God, that just said, why do you presume that I'm against you?
Mm. Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, which is crazy because as a pastor, I stand up there like on a Friday, on a Sunday, just telling people God's for you. God works all things together for your good. But how I'd been living my life was as if everyone, even God at times, is against me. And I'm somehow battling all of these circumstances all the time.
Yeah, wow.
And so that was really like one of those like hit yourself around the head with a bat kind of moments. It was just like, whoa, like it stopped me in the tracks. And I was like, man, I would never have said that. And yet the way I talked to myself and thought about some of those situations was that, oh, God's out to get me. There's something I've done that means he's now trying to stop me succeeding or me having, great things happen.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It is amazing how, and I'm starting to learn a lot about it with, doing things like the Enneagram, which I know you love. We can probably chat about that a bit more. But just reading some books on like psychology, things like that, learning, I don't know, what do they call them? Like the unconscious, like how you believe things that you don't even know that you believe.
Yeah.
You know? And it's crazy. It's scary, but it's also, I kind of like looking at it from the flip side where I'm like, hey, if I can change those things, man, life is going to be, amazing.
Yeah.
I can do. And so learning how to change those things and just stuff that has just been somehow ingrained in you that now it's so deep that you don't even know where it's come from. And it's only in moments like that, like you had, where you go, wow, this is a lie that I've been believing.
Yeah.
Or, I think it works both ways. You can have like truth that's been spoken into you, and one of the things that I'm really interested in is, the power of like positivity, which sounds silly. Like I hate all that sort of like, just think and you'll be incredible, think that way and it'll
that's
happen.
right.
But I'm starting to learn like it's so true. Like, if you think negative and you're a negative person and you're constantly, thinking that the world's out to get you, that people don't want the best for you, good things aren't going to happen to you just because you will see everything in that light. Whereas as I'm starting to learn, looking into the future and thinking, what do I want my life to look like? This is, or not even thinking, it's another level, which is what I'm starting to learn as well, is it's not even just thinking, this is what I want it to look like. It's putting yourself in that situation and going, this is what my life looks like, So, and then you reverse engineer that. So you go, this is what my life looks like. How do I can work backwards and figure out what I need to do to get to that point.
Yeah, starting now. Yeah, that's cool.
And it's huge because for me, it flicks that mentality. It flips it on its head because you're not, I'm a big person so on the Enneagram, I'm a 3. So I'm constantly trying to achieve, but also my like dark side of me is I think that everybody, I think that I'm sort of worthless and that people think that. And so I have to achieve to make people like me sort of thing.
Yeah, to bring some sense of worth to who you are.
Yeah, so I spent a long time trying to figure out my why, things like that. And every day you'd be like, yes, this is the one. You'd write it down, and then the next day you'd be like, no, I don't like that one. I think it's this. And it got to the point where I was so confused, and it was like your head is just a cloud with all this, information that you don't know how to express. But I went and saw a counselor, and one of the things he said was, sit down somewhere. Don't look at like a YouTube video that's saying this is how you find your why. He's like, sit down, be quiet, and just really think about what you want your life to look like.
Yeah.
And I realized I'd never actually done that. I'd kind of thought about what I should do in order to get to where I want to go. Yeah. But I never actually thought about like a super clear picture of the destination.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? And not just like, hey, I want to be able to work for myself or something.
Yeah.
But actually, it's as in depth as I want to work for myself doing this. I want to have 5 staff in this kind of office.
Wow, so you got like really specific.
Yeah, and I'm on that journey.
Yeah, yeah.
But because the more, and it's not saying that because that will exactly happen.
Yeah.
But it's painting a clear picture for yourself. And I'm finding it really helps.
Yeah.
Because then that way you go, well, that's what I'm aiming for. Now I need to figure out the steps to get there.
How do you go like with that? Are you finding, because I sit here thinking, yeah, that would be really encouraging. But at the same time I go, but if I felt like if I wasn't making progress quickly enough, I would very quickly dive into frustration, anger, bitterness about, oh man, like I thought I'd be further than I am now. How do you find that?
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
But one of the things, especially like the guy who's been my counselor, he was saying, my personality type, I'm always going to be thinking of the next thing. That's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because I'm so curious. I just said curious. I'm so curious. Yeah. Great tennis player.
Terrible human being.
Terrible human being. I should talk to him.
You should. That would be interesting.
Yeah. But because I'm constantly looking for the next thing and like trying to learn and interested. But he was saying, that's awesome, but your biggest struggle then is going to be focusing on something. So I've started a whole bunch of things in my life. I've started a few businesses that really the only reason that they kind of didn't take off is because I got bored.
Yeah, wow.
I started BPM, which was the clothing company.
Yeah.
Had this awesome heart behind it, learned so much doing it, but then probably, I think it was about 12 months in, I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. On to the next thing.
Yeah, got you.
But then you just throw that all away and you're on to the next thing. But then, so one of the things he was saying is, you've kind of just got to start and do and go, this is what I enjoy doing now. And I think it's that self-awareness. Understand that there will be plenty of things that come at me where I go, I think I'd rather be doing that, but having the self-awareness and the, I don't know if confidence is the right word, but to go, you know what, I could go in all these directions, but I'm just going to go in this direction and see where it takes me.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a chance, I'd go down this podcast route. Yeah, like in 5 years' time, I might not be doing podcasting.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least I look at it as the worst case. I've talked to interesting people and learnt a lot.
Yeah, that's cool.
Made some new friends, hopefully, if I'm a nice person. Things like that. But yeah, you kind of just there and acknowledging that there are going to be those times of frustration, uncertainty, just wanting to go fast because that's what I want to do. But
you want to get there as quick as possible.
Yeah, but just understanding that's not how life works. And I think that comes with learning about yourself, but just also I think just experience as well. And I say that a bit strange because I'm only 28. Or how old am I? Yeah, 28. But even then, I still think I have so much more experience than I did when I was 18.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So you're what number are you on the Enneagram?
I'm an 8.
8. What's an 8?
They're called the Challenger.
Oh,
power focused, strength focused, hates sense of weakness or inferiority.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah. And a strong anti-rejection base. So always trying to avoid rejection, which is by coming on strong and,
trying to be the dominate in the
and the dominant force in the room in that sense of if people choose to reject me, that's fine because I'm in charge. So you can just leave, kind of sort of vibe. There's a bit of that. Try and be strong in the sense of I've got my, how to describe it, also like smaller social group normally, like more tight knit group of people that are just like constantly for you. And so then it's a bit like, well, if people reject me, that's fine because I've got these 5 or 6 people who really matter to me, and as long as they don't, life's good.
Yeah. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an introvert.
Yeah. So that smaller group of people around you as well probably makes sense. Well.
Totally.
You can go super deep with those guys and not as wide with a huge variety of people in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you're a pastor as well, so there's a challenge there because you've also got to talk to people outside of your immediate network of people, but they're the people that you kind of I don't know what's the word. Yeah, you go deep with, I guess. You spend the deep parts of your life with.
Yeah, and it's like a little bit more complicated being a pastor. Like a lot of people, when I say, I'm an introvert, get surprised by that. And I think that's because there's a little bit of that stereotype of, but you're on stage for 35 minutes talking the whole time. And, you're wheeling and dealing in the crowd after, talking to people, saying hello, praying for people. But what they don't often get is as soon as I get in the car with Rachel, it's like silence, Like I might put some music on, we'll talk a little bit, but I'm done for a little bit. I need a little bit of downtime between going to church and going to dinner because I know I'm about to have to kick into gear.
Yeah.
And, like my days off on Wednesday, I think the only person I talked to until Rachel got home was the lady at Australia Post who gave me my package.
Yeah, wow.
That was it. And totally fine.
Because you need to recharge.
Yeah, I actually loved it. It was a great day.
Yeah.
Did a few things, read a few books.
Yeah, nice.
But just had that sort of time just to myself. And
well, I think it's a big misconception when people especially looking at pastors, but just also people who are doing speaking keynotes. A lot of them are introverts, and because people go, well, you have to talk to people, but in that moment, you're not necessarily making. If you're up on stage, you're not making one-on-one connections with people.
Yeah.
You are sharing what you've learned to a group of people, and then yes, a lot of time you will then go and make those connections afterwards. I think it's the same token. There's a lot of extremely extroverted people who don't make good speakers and people like that, but they're
Yeah.
incredible at going and connecting people and
Networking in the crowd.
networking.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But I also, do you find, and with the Enneagram and things like that, you can kind of pigeonhole yourself as well? Like, I know when I started looking into it, I was like, oh, I'm a 3. That means all this stuff that I'm potentially not good at, I don't have to do.
Yeah.
You know, I found myself doing that as a bit of a cop-out. Whereas it's like, no, this is what I naturally am. It doesn't mean I can't do those things. It just means that to be most effective, it's being aware, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think for me, what helped me not fall into that was the man who introduced me to it, my spiritual formation director. His whole idea and the whole premise of the Enneagram is actually that this is a framework that helps you understand how you have operated to survive up to where you are right now.
Yeah, that's good.
But that actually, there's an invitation, and again, using Christian language, from God to be able to jump out of the box that you have put yourself in. So he sort of talks about it, and I really like that ideology, is that you're that as you go through life and, you know, in your informative teen years and, you know, early 20s, you put yourself in a box, a way of thinking and interacting with the world that falls in these sort of like, you know, I think it's the 9 main personality categories, and then you got all this complicated stuff that goes on underneath. But you put yourself in a box in those sort of 9 areas, and you have found that living that way has been the most helpful for you to survive and to thrive in those environments. Yeah. But you can't keep staying there for a good, healthy life. So the invitation of the Enneagram is to actually recognize why and how you operate, and then learn to transcend it.
Yeah.
To step out from it. So probably 2 quick little like examples of this has been, I remember being at an event, State Youth Games in Victoria. Oh, yeah. It's like a big, you know, Christian sporting event. It's massive down there. So there's like 3,000 people that sort of go along. And we were there, and there was like a C grade netball competition. So like, this is like social sport, and there's A grade, B grade, and C grade. And C grade's the lowest. So you're at a social sporting competition. It's not serious. You're not like training for it. No. And you're in the lowest grade of that.
So like there's not much at stake.
There is nothing at stake. But there was this one girl who, her team probably should have made the semifinals, but they didn't. And everyone was a bit like, oh, that's confusing. We probably thought they were going to make it. But everyone just moved on with the day. Not her. She had recorded all of the scores for the whole game, and she went up to the umpires and the people who had been, you know, keeping the scores and said, hey, I've done the math. I think you got some points wrong, and I think you put the wrong team in the semifinals. And she did that while the semifinals were happening.
She needs a life.
Yeah, but she made this big fuss to the point that they're like, fine, we'll make your team versus the winner of the appropriate semifinal that you were in to play off for the grand final or whatever. And I remember she came up and she said, she's like, hey guys, just so you know, this team's going to be playing us. And we were like, oh, but you guys didn't make the final. She said, you know, explain the whole situation. And we're like, oh, that just seems weird. And she said, oh, sorry, is it a sanguine? It's one of the personalities. She's like, I'm a sanguine. That's just what I do. And I wanted to, as politely as I could, just yell at her.
Yeah.
Just feel like, you did not have to be your personality. Like, that was a moment for you to actually go, that's something I would normally do, but this is C grade netball at State Youth Games. I now have the option to just let it go.
Yeah. But it's also understanding that may be your personality, but that is your personality in its crappiest form.
Yeah.
You know, like, that sounds harsh.
Yeah, you still have a choice whether to act it out or not.
Like, that's awesome that you're so detail orientated and, you know, want to win that much. But, do it go and get better at netball.
Exactly. Do it somewhere where it matters. Yeah. So that was one where it's like, that's someone who uses a personality test as an excuse to continue to behave that way, which drives me nuts. But I remember when I first came out that I was sort of an 8. My brother also worked with me at the time, so he was an intern, so I was kind of his boss, which was the dream as an 8 and the oldest child to have your younger brother as an employee of yours. You get to boss him around for a living.
Top dog.
Top dog.
Yeah.
But he helped me understand how I would express, like me being an 8 in that. And so just a small example would be, it would be lunchtime, right? I'd look at the time and be like, 12:35, I'm hungry. I'd be like, all right, boys, let's go get lunch. We're going to Subway today.
Yeah.
Because I just made the decision that it was lunchtime and where we would go. And he said, no, that's you being an 8, just being in control. And I said, all right. So the next day I was like, all right, boys, do you want to have lunch now? And where would you like to go? And he's like, no, again, you're determining who is making the decision. I was like, fine. Like, what do I do? And he's like, what you need to do if you want to be as the least normal version of yourself as possible is at about 12:30 to turn to us and go, hey boys, who would you like to decide where to go for lunch today? And when would you like that decision to be made by? Like as loose as possible. And I was like,
that sounds awful.
It was the worst. I hated it. I was like, you guys suck. But again, it was the invitation actually going, all right, normally I just make a decision.
Yeah.
And actually what had been happening in the past was that they were like, yeah, but I'm in the middle of something and now I have to go to lunch. And so I wasn't leading them well because I was so focused on what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it.
Yeah, true.
And so actually how I had been operating was aggravating and frustrating and, annoying them in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And they were actually not inviting me to stop being myself, but they were inviting me to help me be a better leader.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So,
that's good, eh?
but that's only if you're willing to, instead of saying, I'm an 8, that's just what I do, when they say, no, you're being too, dictative, to actually be like, all right, that's what I have done. What am I invited to do differently now?
Well, it's interesting because I think at the moment the Enneagram, it's been around. I think it's the oldest personality test, been around for thousands and thousands of years or whatever.
Yeah.
But it seems to be like the thing at the moment as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to a podcast with, do you know Tim Ferriss at all?
Yeah.
So it's him talking
He's
to...
that 4-hour work week guy, isn't he?
Yeah. He done it for a few books and pretty good books. The
Yeah.
title's terrible. And he even admits, he's like, the title is misleading. But it actually makes sense when you read it. But he was interviewing a guy called Toby Lutke or something. I think he's Norwegian, German or something. And he lives in Canada, and he started Shopify, the online e-commerce or like $1 billion company sort of thing. But he was a computer programmer before then, so he co-founded it. And then kind of got thrust into being the CEO when his other co-founder decided, this is not going the way I want to go, and left. But he went through a bunch of personal development to try and go from a programmer who hated business to now running a $1 billion company.
Yeah, wow, that's a big transition.
Big transition. But he found the Enneagram really helpful to the point where every staff member in Shopify has their number on their door. So if you're walking into someone's office, you can see this person is a 3.
Yeah.
I'm a 6. And they have had extensive training to realize not so much this person is going to act like this and that's fine.
Yeah.
But more so that he says it's because then everybody understands I'm walking into a meeting with this person. Their natural tendency is going to be this.
That's good.
And so how as for me as a 3 and say I'm walking to your office, you're an 8, how can I then work in a way that benefits us both?
Yeah.
And it actually, he's like, it can go both ways, but you can then sort of play on their personality type as well. So, like Danielle, my wife, she's a 6.
Yep.
Through and through, 6. And after we did the Enneagram, it's been really good for our marriage because we've done a bunch of the other personality tests and just also talk to each other. So we kind of got to...
That's always helpful too, communication.
That's probably step 10, I think.
If you've done all of the personality tests, then start communicating.
But we've kind of... And there's still so much to learn, obviously, but... I've now find myself, not all the time, but sometimes I guess when we're in our healthy mindset I'll say where there's something that is a bit of a challenge and we're discussing it.
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, she's naturally coming from that way.
Yeah.
Whereas before I used to be like, what is wrong with you? Like, don't you just want to succeed and win?
Yeah.
Like that's putting it in a silly way, but but she's coming in from the other side of, she doesn't like change too much and she needs that stability. And
Yeah.
But I'm learning, but she thinks about everything. Say we're going to go and buy a new car, which we haven't done. I'll have like figured out what car I want. This is the best one. Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
But she's thought about, how that's going to affect every part of our life, which sounds awful to me because I'm like, let's just go and buy a car, But without listening to her, there's stuff that I would have missed. But at the same token, I also think, and Denny's quite good, but she could easily get just caught up with all the details.
Yeah.
And need someone to go, okay, let's just go and do it now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I
think it's really key, especially for people in relationships and leading in business.
Yeah.
Well, I think for anything really.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that's good. I just did the Myers-Briggs one as well. I'd never done it before. And so I'd always thought I was an introvert.
Yeah.
Because I just don't, I struggle to go and talk to people.
Yeah.
It came out that I was an extrovert.
Mm.
I was like, this is garbage. What a load of crap, But after thinking about it and then talking to my counselor, he got me to do it because he's does a lot of that sort of stuff as well. But he started talking to me through all these scenarios. And I was like, you know what? I am an extrovert.
Yeah.
I'm quite a shy extrovert.
Yeah.
But I've now started experimenting with, I'm feeling really down. How can I recharge? Before I used to be like, well, I'm an introvert. I need to go and read a book. And I'd read a book and just feel awful. I'd be like, I feel worse. And so I'd think, well, maybe I need to read more books, this sort of thing, because I'd pigeonholed myself. It's looking back on it, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
But now that I've figured that out, I can recharge a lot easier.
Yeah.
I just enjoy talking to people as well. Like this, I enjoy talking to people, So
yeah, it's good.
It is good. You and me, we both went and saw Mr. Jordan. I was going to bring this up. There was a nice segue about 10 minutes ago, but I missed it.
But we missed it.
But we went and saw Jordan Peterson.
The notorious Jordan Peterson.
The notorious JP. But
I always think of Conor McGregor when that happens.
Yeah.
The notorious Conor McGregor.
Notorious, very, very controversial figure, as the media like to call him.
Yeah.
And I guess he is controversial.
Being notorious isn't bad, though. The original word was meant being of someone of note.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Notoriety.
Yeah,
noteworthy.
True. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, he is notorious.
Yeah. They're noteworthy people.
I wouldn't mind being notorious then.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
If you phrase it, and it's kind of like, actually, you can call me notorious.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did go and see him.
It's pretty good, eh?
It was. I know there'll be some people listening who'll be like, oh, not that guy. The guy who
that's fine.
wants enforced monogamy, even though that's not what he wants.
That's not what he wants. But if you watch the BBC, of course he does. Or Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A.
I watched some of those clips. He didn't do too well. I mean, no, sorry, he didn't do too badly. But, yeah, it's hard.
Oh, certain people they put on Q&A, don't they just set up to make it as difficult as possible?
Yeah. It's impossible. Like, we went and saw him. How long did he speak for, you reckon?
2 hours?
2 hours. And he went through the 12 rules in his book.
Yeah.
So he has a book called The 12 Rules for Life. If you Google this guy, for anyone listening, you'll figure out what we're talking about. He's flipping everywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
But so he took 2 hours to do that, whereas I watched like a Q&A on the Q&A and they're like, Jordan, can you answer this question? And he's like just started talking and the moderator guy, who seems like a pretty nice dude.
Yeah.
He's like, that's your minute, Jordan. And then like that's all he gets is like a minute and a half, 2 minutes or whatever to discuss some deep philosophical discussions.
Because everyone knows that the best way to discuss those deep issues is a minute at a time.
Oh, yeah. Look at the project. So much good stuff comes out of the project.
Yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Don't get me started on that. We'll go down a wormhole. But a wormhole? No, rabbit hole. Anyway.
It'll feel like both. Let's be real.
Exactly.
You feel like you're in a new dimension.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, let's not go there. Well, what do you reckon was your biggest takeaway from Thursday night?
I feel like probably two things stood out to me. And the first one was, I don't even know if it was in one of his rules or just when he started. He was just doing a bit of a monologue, but he talked about write, talk, and speak about what grips you.
Okay.
Because he, as a communicator, I just like, wow, that's really good. He's like, write, talk, and speak about what grips you, because that is what. And I can't remember exactly how he phrased it because it was so early on. Then you get smashed with all of the rest of the content. I remember like at random points through the night trying to remind myself, speak about what grips you, because he's like, that's what brings your soul alive. That's what is valuable and important to you. That's maybe what you were, put on this earth to write, speak, and
I remember
think
that
about.
now, yeah.
Yeah.
He's just talking about, I think he was just started talking about how he'd written the book.
Yeah.
And then because he talked about how he's enjoyed, I think it's 157 lectures on this book tour, which is crazy. But by doing that, he's been able to flesh out more and more what he's written about.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was saying, because it was a bit of a joke kind of thing, but he said, as a tip, if you're going to write a book, write about something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And write about something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Which sounds like trivial, but there's a lot of people who don't do that, I know.
Yeah. And I think it was the way that he said it. It was that extra part of like, the reason that it grips you might be because this is the truth that you're meant to really speak about. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. So I really liked that. And then I think the next part that I really enjoyed was probably, he talked about, I can't remember which rule it was with. I think it was the rule that was about, I think it's rule 4, which is like, don't compare yourself to someone else, but compare yourself to who you were yesterday.
Yes.
You've got the book there, so you can confirm or deny whether I'm right.
Rule 4 is compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Yes. Nice one. Not to who someone else is today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, eh?
Yeah, it's such a good one. But he was talking about this whole idea about getting the balance of having an ability to stand firm in kind of like who you are, like having one foot in who you are while also having another foot in who you can grow to be. So stretching yourself, learning new things, trying new things. And this whole idea of, I think the thing I loved the most was, and again, probably for me as someone quite fast paced, want to get things done. Let's make things happen quickly. He was just like, if you can, wake up the next day and go, you know what, today I'm 1/100th% better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Then you had a great day. Like you're better for it. And I was like, you know what, that's probably more the mindset I need to have. Like sometimes I kind of get to the end of the week and go, you know what, I didn't write that essay that I really wanted to write, like the whole thing. When it's like, well, actually, like I chipped away at it, and actually during this week, I was a little bit more disciplined than I was the week before. Like actually having a bit more of that mindset, and even comparing yourself to people. Obviously, I work with your wife, Danny, and she's super organized and
what a privilege
disciplined.
That is.
Yeah, oh, it's great. She's awesome. But
she is amazing. That was a joke, Danielle.
Yeah. No, she's so good. She's great in the office because, like, I'm not that. So having her around, sometimes I'm like, hey, I've forgotten something. Danny will know what it is, though.
That is my entire life.
Yeah, I bet.
Me thinking Danny will know what it is. That is just, sorry, go on.
Yeah. And so it's great. But at the moment, like, I'm celebrating because as of this recording, now I'm saying that because by the time this comes out, she'll have surpassed me. But I'm further through my university studies than she is because we're studying the same unit.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm the best version of myself ever.
Yeah.
I'm killing it.
Yeah.
And I just liked that because that whole idea of you can just sort of grow in little ways.
Yeah.
Like one of my things this year has been, and I made it something that I've said to my wife, and I'm saying to people, I even emailed my university supervisor, whoever that is, just said at the start of the year, said, this year I'm aiming to be a better student. I didn't say aiming to get high distinctions on anything. I'm just aiming to be a better student than I was last year.
Yeah.
And like that's a way, I felt like listening to him talk about it, I was like, that's just way healthier.
Yeah.
I'm less likely to beat myself up, which I have a real tendency to do, because it's not about reaching a certain mark. It's just about being able to say, hey, there's been incremental improvement.
Yep.
Which is progress.
And I think that when I'm listening to you saying that, and the side of me that just wants to be the best goes, yeah, but if you just move incrementally, then you're not going to, like, how do you get somewhere quick, if you know what I mean? But it's one of those things that if you have that mentality of I need to be a better version of myself tomorrow than I am today, you don't. It's very hard, I think, to not change rapidly. If you you know what I mean, like, and I don't know how to phrase that, but if you start consciously making a decision that you're going to be in some area better tomorrow than you are today, very quickly, it's like the snowball going down a hill or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
It's those little things that end up being big things,
Yeah. Well, if you think about it over a year, that's 365 incremental changes.
Yeah.
365. That's going to be some serious progress.
Yeah.
By the end of the year.
Well, it's like if you're writing a book. Like, you go, oh, I want to write a book, but a book's so massive. If you write a day or a page a day, you got a 365-page book.
In a year.
That's a big book for me to read.
It's probably too big for me to read. I'll look at it and go, oh, it's over 300 pages.
So you could write half a page a day.
Exactly.
And make that page incredible. And, like that sort of thing. I reference podcasts a lot because that's pretty much all I do at work is listen to podcasts.
No, why wouldn't you? They're great.
But, there was an interesting one with Seth Godin. Do you know who Seth Godin is?
Yeah.
Great marketing extraordinaire.
He's got this like MBA ad that to do an MBA that he's organised.
Yeah, the alt MBA. Yeah.
I always want to do it because I'm like, he's awesome and it would be so cool to do.
He's got some, so people that know, I think he has the most famous blog in the world.
Oh, okay.
He's also written some phenomenal amount of books.
Yeah, he's a bit of like a leadership guru kind of guy, isn't he?
But he said the reason, it was on a podcast just recently, and he said, people always ask me, like, how do I become a writer? Or, and he said, the only reason that I became a writer is because I wrote stuff, and and when you think about that, you think, oh yeah, whatever. But he said, no, and they said, because he was famous for, he would do a blog post every day, and he still does a blog post every single day.
Wow, every day.
He's done that. But they said, the guy who was interviewing said, oh, like, how do you come up with so much like wisdom, for every day? He says, it's because I force myself to do it every day. Like he says, I'm not waiting for me to have a light bulb moment to write something. He says some days there's not much wisdom in it. But he says the next day there is something in it. And then he says maybe I'll have a good blog post that'll resonate for 6 times in a row. And then the day that I'm not feeling so good, but I still force myself to write, it's still moderately good, but it connects with someone and doesn't go viral or something like that. Yeah. And he talks about the only way to get better is to do something.
Yeah.
And I was listening to that. That's like with a podcast, for instance. I compare myself to, it's good and bad, but what we're talking about before, when I was talking about trying to think about what your life would look like in 10, 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
In every situation that I have, I always go massive big picture. So like when I was coming up with what could I name my podcast? I was like, I wouldn't think about if it's something that I like. I'm thinking, when this has been around for 15 years and I've got 200 million downloads, is that something that I really want to have?
Well, I'd be proud of that.
Yeah.
200 million downloads.
And like, I think about that, I'm like, that's just such dumb thinking. Like, I think it's good to think about that momentarily.
Yeah.
But I've just gone, you know what? I'm just going to do stuff as long as episode 3 is, I feel it's better than episode 2. And not because I have a better guest or anything, but just because I've spoken better, I've asked better questions. Yeah. And it's a win.
Yeah.
And then as you said, by the time we get to episode 100, if we get that far, hopefully, imagine what it'll look like.
Yeah, exactly.
That sort of thing. I think that's, that mentality stuff's just key.
Yeah.
I really liked what, I think it was this, he was talking about rule 4, or maybe it was rule 1, which is the stand up straight with your shoulders back sort of thing.
The most controversial.
Most controversial. And it's controversial because people say, oh, it's aggressiveness.
Yeah.
But he's actually saying, no, you're being, by you're being vulnerable, but you're also facing the day confidently. You're facing
It's more.
the
It's more
challenge.
about being courageous rather than aggressive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he talks about, and you could probably correct me, but I think it was in that one. He was also talking about, you need to have a foundation, but then build on that foundation to get better and better as a human being. And you're constantly on the edge of chaos and getting better. And he used the analogy of like music, which resonated with me. So it's like, think of any good song that you love. It's because it has a good melody, a good beat, a good lyrics or good message or something in it. He says, but if you listen to that exact same beat, exact same melody for the whole song, it'd get pretty boring after a while. So a good musician has a firm foundation, but then builds on that all the time. Every verse will be a little bit different.
Yeah, there's intricacies in it.
And then it'll come down a little bit and change for the bridge or something like that. Unless it's like a techno song, and then it's the same thing for 2 hours. That's not true. I like some of that sort of music sometimes. But that stuck with me because like that, it's that constant, here's my firm foundation and kind of this is what I want. This is who I am. Now, how can I build on that?
Yeah.
It was such a good night.
Yeah.
Really liked it.
It was. And I think, like, you put some of his other stuff aside, if there's, people think he's controversial or whatever, you break down the 12 rules and you go, there is some, like, real gold in that. When I read the book, my favorite one was the rule, I think it's rule 2, where it's like, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for caring. Yeah. And he quotes this crazy statistic that says people are more likely to make sure that their pets consume their medication regularly and on time than they are themselves.
Yeah. Crazy, hey?
And I was like, I remember reading that and being like, oh, that's ridiculous. And then as I read the chapter, I was like, oh man, like actually, I don't treat myself very well.
Yeah.
Like I don't actually look after myself the way I would look after someone else. And, like little things like, my wife, Rachel, she burned her hand recently and, I'm all like, make sure you get the medication and put the bandage on, all that sort of stuff. But if I did it to myself, I'd be like, no, I'm all right. Like she's fine.
She'll be right, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, actually, that's not looking after myself well. But then you look at it internally and it's, exactly the same thing. And you can see how the rules interplay because if you're not trying to just be a little bit better each day, and particularly in our world with like social media and stuff like that, you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. It's really easy to not care for yourself very well. Yeah, in fact, to beat yourself up, try and force yourself to be better, be merciless with yourself to try and be like others because you're too concerned with being who someone else is today than being better than you were yesterday. Yeah. And it's like they're two different rules, but you can see the health of how they interplay together.
Well, I think he said it on Thursday night, none of this stuff's new.
No.
Like, none of these concepts are new, but I think what is new is where he's actually putting it in a book and saying, like, in today's landscape and saying, this is what you need to do to be a better person.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I think a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't like being told, hey, you should do this to be a better person because they say, well, I am who I am, I
was born this way.
Lady Gaga. And there's an element of that where you go, well, I am who I am, but it's also, and I think the big thing is he's saying it's your responsibility. Like it's almost, it's your duty to get better, to be a better person.
Yeah.
And that looks different for every person, but there are principles that you need to follow,
Yeah.
It was really good.
It was just brilliant. And I mean, even just watching someone hold a room captive for like 2 hours. And the thing that was most incredible is he's not a dynamic communicator. So you don't go and he's like, wow, he's really interesting to watch.
He spent most of the time staring at the floor playing with his wedding ring.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? Like, but it's what is coming out of his mouth.
And it's that great reminder that brilliant content will keep people engaged, just as much as brilliant presentation.
Yeah.
If you can get the both together, like I just imagine if he, I always think of like the people like a Stephen Furtick and those guys who are really engaging to watch. Like you go, the content's good, but like you're easy to watch. Imagine if he presented like someone like that
or
with
like
that
a Tony
level of
Robbins
content.
Or something.
Yeah, like with that level of content, you'd be like, he's already highly in demand, but it would just be like,
crazy,
off the charts.
And do you think a bit of his appeal though is because he is not like that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It seems more real. It doesn't seem like it's hype.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how, and he said it quite a lot. Like he is still figuring this stuff out as well. I really enjoyed when he would go, rule 2, for instance, and say it, and then go, this has caused a lot of controversy, and I think it's because I should have written it this way, or I should have. It's someone who acknowledges, hey, I've written this book, but I'm not a perfect person. I haven't got all the answers. These are huge topics. I'm still figuring them out, and we can figure them out together.
Yeah.
I respond well to that authenticity and just humbleness as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Where you could, I think part of his appeal is that he gets angry. Like he'll get angry if he, because he's like, no, this is not true, or this is, but because he is almost, I don't know what the word is, not unassuming. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Yeah, there's this sense of like, I'm just me.
Fake.
Yeah, and I think because it sounds like he was never aiming to achieve the level of fame that he got.
No,
it sort of came upon him.
Yeah, and he can partly thank. Well, I think he says it. He's like, I do thank a lot my critics for thrusting me into the limelight even more. I read this crazy. It popped up in my Facebook thing. It was from that Mamma Mia site. Or whatever. Man, what such a
they do some hilarious Bachelor recaps.
Oh, they do. They do some funny stuff. But when they try and do genuine journalism, it's interesting. So there was a review on, I think it was the Sydney one, and the lady said all these white men were there. She's like, Jordan Peterson hates. The title was Jordan Peterson hates women. Or something very similar to that.
Yeah, was it Jordan Peterson has a problem with women or something like that?
Has a problem with women.
Yeah, because I think I saw it. I didn't click on it because that's just clickbait.
You didn't miss much. I got sucked in. But he was like, well, no, it was a female journalist, and she was like, just constantly said in it how the entire audience was white males. And what I couldn't believe is when we were in Brisbane, obviously.
Yeah, which is pretty conservative state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know if it was 50-50, but it would have been close. There was a lot of females in that room.
Yeah, I was surprised by how many women there were.
Yeah.
And particularly women who came by themselves.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like they were coming along with their boyfriend. Like there was multiple women. There was one even in our row and one just across from us who came by themselves.
Yep.
They didn't come with any other men.
And they were holding the book as well.
Yeah.
And they didn't protest, so they weren't there to protest. Well, if they were there to protest,
they didn't do a very good job of it.
Very good job.
I didn't hear them
because they sat. It was a silent protest.
I'm going to pay money to support you, and I'm not going to say anything negative about it. Yeah,
yeah. What a way to disrupt the society.
Just really stuck it to him.
Yeah. But yeah, I was really encouraged by that, to be honest. And not because I'm getting on the bandwagon of, I don't know what bandwagon I'm getting on, but I was really encouraged,
Yeah, well, you weren't worshipping like some people were. I get that. No, those front two rows standing.
There was definitely some people that are, because if you don't have something else to look up to in your life, people are drawn to figures like that,
Oh, and it's easy for these 12 rules for life to become a secular person's Bible.
Oh, yeah. It's their religion.
Yeah.
Because we were sitting next to Chris. I was sitting next to Chris. It was between you and me. And he was like, oh, look at all these people standing up. But I was like, Jordan Peterson right now is like almost Jesus to them.
Yeah, totally.
This is their religion.
He's given them a sense of meaning and purpose. And for some people, like, change their lives with the 12 rules. They're like, oh, my life was spiraling out of control. And now, I've got a sense of purpose and meaning. And
do you reckon Jordan Peterson's a Christian?
Don't know. That's always a tough question. People seem to think that He quotes a lot of the Bible.
He does, yeah.
I think he's more of a theist.
What is it? What's a theist?
Someone who believes in a higher power,
Yeah.
but doesn't necessarily have a fixed religion point.
Yeah. Is it like an agnostic? No.
Agnostic, I think, is kind of like, and my definitions might be wrong, but from my understanding, an agnostic is kind of someone like, yeah, I think there might be a God, but I'm not really too worried about it. But Jordan Peterson's got this quote that's kind of like, I live my life as if God is real, and there's something like, and in fear that I'm probably right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he kind of has that theist outlook where it is like, I think there might be a higher power and I think he might have a bit of a say about my life.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not sure whether he's the Christian God or the Muslim God or, Buddhism is the way there.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's a bit more generalized. He's like, I don't have a fixed religion point, but I kind of live my life as if he is.
Yeah.
There is a higher being holding me accountable.
Yeah, because he does. He does mention. He uses scripture a lot.
Yeah. I think that's just because of the Judeo-Christian culture and background.
Yeah.
Like the Bible is the book that built the Western culture.
Yeah. It's true, and people don't like knowing that, but it's kind of history.
Yeah, Christians, started hospitals and universities and acknowledged the dignity of human life, and there is a whole lot of terrible things that came about because of Christian history.
Yeah.
There is a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
That happened. Yeah,
but it's a credible book, and even a lot of atheists, like scientists and people like that, say that there's evidence that Jesus was a real person, alive at that time. There's so much corroborating evidence, off of the scriptures and things like that I don't think any really educated person says Jesus was not a real person.
Yeah.
And so I think he's saying, look, this, just as he kind of used Socrates, I think that that was so interesting. And on a side note, when he was talking about his is his name Socrates?
Yeah, I think that's how they say it.
The philosopher. I looked him up. Yesterday I was working hard.
Yeah,
I went on a big Wikipedia wormhole.
Classic.
I didn't realize he was like 100 BC or something.
Yeah,
crazy, like super old.
Yeah, he is.
And but he was talking about how Socrates had always had this kind of voice inside of him, which you could call his conscience, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we would call it now.
Yeah, but it would always tell him what not to do.
Yeah.
What not to do. Not what to do, but what not to do.
Yeah. And
he used to call it his daemon.
Daemon. That was the word they used.
But that Jordan Peterson was saying, I've learnt that that is the root word for democracy.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was really interesting. I don't know how that tied into the entire.
No, I can't remember now.
I think he was just kind of like, "Hey, I learnt this today," or like learnt this.
Or was he trying to make a point about an inner democracy, about how there's this other thing inside of you, your conscience, that you have a dialogue with, and you make decisions about how you're going to operate and live your life, democratically.
Yeah, which everyone. Well, I think everyone does. I think that's true. I think because that ties in with whichever rule it is. It's at the end, which is tell the truth, always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Because he's saying no matter what your moral structure is, something inside of you, when you're not telling the truth, and you know when you're doing something wrong, and so it's sort of listening to that and learning from that and understanding where that comes from. Because as we talked about at the start of when we first started talking, that can be something like when you were talking about what came out of when you were younger. Yeah. That can be something that is either a good thing or a bad thing as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and can be used for good. No, that's good. What else did I have? So you're a youth pastor at the moment.
Yeah.
What do you reckon what's your big dream?
No, that is a great question. Big dream. I don't know. I felt like when I was younger, I always dreamed of doing the whole senior pastor, leading a large church, all of that. I think that was a little bit of ego. Now that I look back, just as a kid, if I get there, and probably not understanding myself a little bit, if I get there, I will have made it. I will be powerful. I'll be in charge, kind of thing. I think there was that. Probably now, I probably try and think a little bit more around like, instead of like what dream would I love to achieve, which I still think is a little bit there. Like there's some, those kind of like, oh, it'd be cool to do this, it'd be cool to do that. I kind of try and think a little bit more about like legacy, like what do I want to be known for?
Yeah.
And I think probably that started to happen when I finished up in my old church back in Ballarat. So back in Ballarat at that church, I had grown up there. So I moved there when I was 3.
Yeah.
And I basically went to that church from when I was 3 until I left when I was 25.
Okay.
And so as I was
ingrained in,
but as I was finishing there, it was kind of like all of a sudden these thoughts. It was like, what do I hope people say about me when I'm gone?
Yeah.
Like, what's my legacy going to be? Like, as much as I could achieve all of these dreams, what is the point if I leave a trail of people that go, Ben was a terrible human being?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote 5 books. He's a really great preacher. But if you ever talk to him, he's terrible. Like, he doesn't care about people. He doesn't listen. He doesn't love people. He's not very gracious or gentle. Like, what's the point of achieving all these things if the legacy that I leave behind is woeful?
Yeah, I'd rather be not remembered at all than remembered poorly.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's been part of it for me. Like, what legacy do I want to leave behind?
Yeah.
And like, what legacy do I want to have in my life? I think it's Henry Cloud in his book Integrity. I think he talks about what's the wake of your life. So like how a boat goes through water and then the wake goes out behind it. He's like, we live a life that is like that. It's like we're going in one direction, but sometimes we don't understand or we underestimate the wake and how far-reaching
like
it can
the
be.
ripple effect kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that actually what we should be thinking about is what is our wake? Like, what are we leaving behind? What is the ripple of our life for others? And I think I read that around a similar time that I was finishing up, and it was kind of like, whoa, like I needed to think like that. And so for me, that's probably been more what I'm thinking, what legacy do I want to leave behind? And so for me, it's all about like human flourishing.
Yeah.
And so as a pastor, I think Jesus is a key part of that. Like I think people finding Jesus, I think they're going to find a new sense of hope, purpose, meaning, healing in their life that is going to be a part of their human flourishing. But I also think that it is just about helping people be who they were designed to be, realizing the incredible untapped potential that is within each human being.
Yeah.
Like I hate, probably that's been my big thing, is I hate seeing people sell themselves short.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
Just like, you can do more than you realize, like so much more. And so I always hope now, probably more than anything, that the legacy that I'm leaving behind is that people feel like when I spent time with Ben, I left a better person than I was before. I felt like I was more capable of doing something. I felt like I was encouraged to achieve something I never thought I could. I felt like I learnt something. I was equipped to do something. But the legacy from me is that people are better for having been in my presence, in that weird sense of, not that I'm Jesus, like spend time in the presence of Ben and your life will be better, but as in like...
You should write 12 rules.
Ben's 12 rules for life.
Yeah.
Number 1, spend time in his presence.
Number 2, always get a tattoo at a different tattoo parlor.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if that'd be very helpful rules.
That'd be helpful for somebody who wanted to get a tattoo.
That's right. But yeah, so just like that sort of idea that any time I'm talking to people, it's about helping them be better.
Yeah, cool.
That's kind of the idea. And then I think probably some of my dreams would come about because of that. Like I'd love to write a book, and I'd love to help young communicators. So I think that's some of the things. I see a lot of books about, communicating to certain contexts and people, but they're often for people who are already doing it regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
And probably one of my things, particularly in church world, is, and being in youth, I get these 19-year-olds and go, all right, here, have a preach. And there's not really great content to give them. I got to coach them through it a lot. And I know that that's probably something that's happening in the church at large.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. And I go, there's a whole lot of churches that these young people, they might be passionate about Jesus. They want to, talk about what they're learning in the Bible, but they're not getting really well equipped. They either don't have a great communicator above them, or they might, but that person doesn't necessarily have the time to invest in them really well to coach them through the whole process. And so I'd love to just have some resource available. It's just, super basic, but that people can access. So, they could be in this small church in Sydney. They're 20 years old, trying to start a youth ministry. They don't really know what to do or how to preach well to reach young people. And there's something they can just find online.
Yeah. Do it.
To do that. Yeah. So that's part of that. Love to do that. So book, do that. And I just, I don't know what it all looks like, but even just getting alongside people. And
I think that's a part of it. What you said, you just said it then. I don't know what it all looks like. I think that is part of the fun of life.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And it sounds so obvious, but I myself get caught up all the time. I'm like, I need to have a super, super clear picture. And I talked about having a clear picture, but that's kind of understanding that clear picture is a picture that I have now.
Yeah.
But if I work my way towards that, there's a high chance it's going to look different.
Yeah.
But if I'm striving, I think it's what you're talking about, selling yourself short. That is something that I'm super passionate about, is going, there's people, I hate hearing the words, I just can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I really would love to do that, but, it's just not who I am. And so it's just do it. Or
and if you'd love to do that, there's a passion in there. That must be part of who you are.
Yeah. Exactly. And
do it.
And saying just do it, I realize that is easier said than done. But maybe just start is the word, which is what I've found. Progress only happens when you start, I've sat there and thought about things for months.
Yeah.
And then it's too hard. Well, send an email, even a couple of guests that I've got coming on in the future, I was sitting there going, they could never come on the show. I don't know who they are. I haven't met them. I found their Facebook, sent them a Facebook message. One of them within 5 minutes was like, yeah, I'd love to. It's like, crap.
Yeah.
Now I got to prepare.
That's exactly
but I wasn't
right.
expecting, a part of me wasn't expecting. But then I was like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that happens is they go, sorry. And even if they say, sorry, you're an idiot, it's like, well, that's fine. You're not coming on the show anymore.
Yeah. I don't want you. You're rude.
You know what I mean? But I think that a lot of people don't understand that, well, maybe they do understand it, but it's intimidating.
It is.
There's a thing that I've learned as well, which I'm starting to do more, which is called goal setting is great, but there's a thing called fear setting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's going, this is what I would love to do. I'm going to write 3 columns now. What is from, this is almost like a risk assessment, low, medium, high.
Oh, okay, now I'm out now.
But yeah, I hate risk. I was a workplace health and safety officer at my work.
Oof.
I was the worst workplace health and safety officer ever. Anyway, I don't have that job anymore. But the fear setting, it was this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I've built it all up in my head. But if I write down what is the worst thing that can happen, and it's almost like you do a bit of free writing. So it's don't critique it. Just go, it's most extreme. It could be I'm going to die. Whatever.
Yeah, I want to go kite surfing. Yeah, worst thing that happened. Oh, I could die.
Well, even podcasting, it could be I'm going to have this guest on, or I'm going to call this guest up. What's the worst that could happen? Could be they're going to think I'm an idiot and spread and tarnish my reputation. The probability of that happening is 0.001%.
Very low.
And also, if I approach them politely, there's probably near impossible. They're not going to do that. But it's all this stuff that you don't realize is in your head that you kind of think about. If you actually put it out on paper, most of the time you look at it and go, there's no downside. Or if there is a downside, it's extremely low. And you can usually, if it's of such a low downside, turn it into an upside by going, look, this person might reject me if I see if they're going to come on the podcast. But hey, at least I'll have the experience of reaching out to an influential person.
Yeah.
At least I'll
really
know
good.
what not to do next time. You know, and a lot of the times it's probably because they've got 10,000 other people asking them to do it at the same time. But you can usually turn downside into an upside. You know, like I don't know how we got onto that, but it's something that I'm.
Oh yeah, it was about potential. And you're like, oh yeah, but you've done fear setting.
Fear setting, yeah. Another thing from a Tim Ferriss podcast.
Yeah,
I'm going to get him on the podcast one day.
You're gonna have to say that because you're like, I quote you all the time, so you got to come on now.
Yeah, and just and then he can quote me.
And what's the worst thing that could happen if you ask him?
Yeah, exactly.
He says no.
Well, he won't. If he doesn't reply, well then I'll just try again.
Yeah,
you know, like,
exactly.
Or figure out a different way to do it. You know, it's all he talks about. And not him. Like he's probably the most. Him and Joe Rogan are probably the most two podcasts I listen to.
Yeah.
I'd say, but they're both like, you know, Tim Ferriss, for instance, had Jamie Foxx on the show.
Wow.
That was one of his. Like that was a couple of years ago now. It was one of his big breaks. But he talks about it took him like, I think it was 16 months or something crazy of back and forward just trying to work that out. You know, of Jamie going, well, Jamie's managers, not even Jamie. Because there's a whole wall of people between him and the public going, oh, look, you'll have to do it here. He can't do it here. But Tim just plodding along and going, I'm going to make this happen. You know, and I'm going to learn how to make this happen. He talks about how out of that experience, he's learnt so much about approaching other high-profile guests.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of thing. And he's like, you can email 5,000 people, 10 say yes, 4,990 say no. But hey, you've got 10 people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like...
And that just came from taking a chance.
Exactly. It's better than emailing 0 people because then you're guaranteed to have 0 people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I think that's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm trying to look for someone. I haven't mentored anyone before. I'm trying to look at, not because I have all the answers at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, I think it helped from my limited experience with sort of help mentoring people.
Mm.
The mentor just as much as the mentee. What is it? Mentor?
I think it's mentee.
No, that sounds silly.
Yeah, it does sound silly.
The person being mentored,
yeah,
they get just about like it's a mutual relationship.
Yeah, yeah. You're both really learning from each other, and
yeah. So, but yeah, no, that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
legacy is important. Hey,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, my biggest, I think, being a 3, come back to the Enneagram.
Yeah,
my biggest legacy is huge for me. You know, because I'm all about how can I succeed. Bring the most amount of people on that journey as well.
Yeah.
So like they talk about, I was talking with my counselor because he's a 3 as well. I'm pretty sure he's like the most important event of my life is the event that I won't be there for because it'll be my funeral. You know, so you're like,
wow,
like in a way, like so that's legacy.
Wow, yeah,
you know, like,
yeah. What people say at your funeral.
Yeah, he's like the most important event of my life will be the first. Well, the only event that I can't make, you know. I was like, oh, that's powerful.
That is powerful.
Yeah. Pretty. And that was like, okay, you can, I don't know, you talked about you can have all the money in the world, but if you're a douchebag, people don't remember. They won't remember you, or they'll remember you very poorly.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas there's people who have done, and not even like just famous, I'm not talking about that, but just like, I want my like great grandchildren to be talking about. Remember when Grandpa Richo, whatever his name's going to be, did this helped us, or he did this and helped these people. You know, that sort of thing. Whereas,
that's a really great way of thinking about it.
And I think that's only. I was just thinking in my head as we're talking then, like my great grandparents. I don't know who they are, but I think a lot of that is also because. Nowadays, there's so much more information available of people. So I think it's even more important then to leave a good legacy. Because if you leave a bad legacy, there's a lot higher chance that it's going to go through history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You say something, if you post some terrible things online and bag out people via Twitter or whatever,
Yeah.
that's going to stay there, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Until something, you know,
Until Twitter's forgotten about, yeah.
Yeah. But whereas back in the day, you kind of, once you died, that person died, all was forgotten.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting deep.
Yeah, it's getting that weird mix of like the internet and human relationships.
That's too much. But anyway, man, this has been, what are we at? An hour and 30 minutes, so that's bang on. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Congratulations for being able to talk to me for that long.
Oh, mate, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, that's good.
You're great to talk to.
But thanks heaps for coming on the show, man.
No worries at all.
Lots of fun.
It
Definitely
has
have
been
to have you back on. Maybe I'll have you on with Jordan Peterson and Tim Ferriss.
Oh, mate, I would be down for that.
Yeah.
If you ever somehow organise that, like, yeah, I'm in the
write
room.
a new book, Ben and Jordan's 24 rules.
24 rules for life. It's one of his serious ones with one of my random ones. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah,
just to break it up a little bit.
Oh man, you got to do that.
Yeah.
And then you can go on Q&A.
And be utterly useless.
You get hammered. Oh yeah, but who knows? But anyway, man, thanks so much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, mate.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And to everybody listening, thanks so much for listening as well. I hope it's been great and you've learned a lot. And see you next time.